Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. ISIS, All That Glitters. The Goddess Next Door takes on a bikini-clad bank robber in this action-packed all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS, All That Glitters in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Better get the coleslaw, y'all, because we're having us a barbecue. A pair of middle school students were charged with a series of crimes after police found a cache of homemade guns and explosives and white supremacist materials in their homes.
Fortify Florida tip led multiple agencies to finding these.
Slam it together, and then that should discharge.
Investigators say this 14-year-old Julian Davis is currently in St. Johns County Jail after they say they found this table full of weapons and pictures showing ammunition. He was arrested on April 30th and faces 8 charges, including conspiracy to commit robbery and making guns and explosives. Investigators say a manifesto shows he was obsessed with killing and was creating weapons. In the Fortify Florida app tip, investigators say they learned the two were planning to rob someone. Sheriff Rob Hardwick talks about what they found when serving the search warrant.
There was things like located 3 privately made firearms and ammunition, makeshift handcuffs, handwritten notes depicting the construction of firearms and chemical reactions and diagrams, a manifesto-style books, tactical vest with white supremacy drawings on it, among other items of concern. I think the key point of this is that Davis was using his devices in his home to research things. He had an asphyxiation with people that had committed, of course, these mass school shootings, people that have gone in and done these mass stabbings.
Sheriff Hardwick says some of the terms that Davis was searching was even unfamiliar to him. The apparent robbery that was supposed to happen behind a Publix. Deputies say the parents of the teen we are not naming are cooperating, but charges cannot be ruled out for the parents of Julian Davis. John Acebus, Channel 4, the local station.
Now, according to reports, the St. Johns County Police in Florida got an anonymous tip about an alleged planned armed robbery through the Fortify Florida app. And after getting this anonymous tip on the Fortify Florida app, this is where the St. Johns County Police did an investigation into the 2 teenagers who were accused of looking to make plans to participate in this armed robbery and got a search warrant to search both of the teenagers' homes. And after searching the teenagers' homes, this is where they found some handmade firearms and handmade ammunition, makeshift weapons, handwritten notes depicting the construction of firearms and chemical reactions and diagrams, manifesto-style books, and a tactical vest with white supremacy drawings in it. And after finding this cache of weapons and other white supremacist materials, this is where police then arrested 14-year-old Julian Davis and then charged him with several felony charges as related to the creation of these homemade weapons, and then charged 13-year-old Charles Williams with a conspiracy to commit armed robbery. Now, the police in Florida are seeing the alleged actions of Julian Davis and Charles Williams as an isolated incident. However, when I take a critical examination of the actions and plans that these 2 teenagers are accused of looking to participate in, it fits a troubling pattern and profile of beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis, and also fits within a pattern and profile of children of the corn I talk about in my book, The Woman Crisis, and also fits within the pattern of cyber simps that I talk about in my book, Stop Simping in Cyberspace. And the behaviors of Julian Davis and Charles Williams just fit a disturbing pattern that I have been seeing emerge as related to children who have grown up in the days of the COVID pandemic. And in the days of the COVID pandemic, we've seen a growing group of children growing into adolescence getting caught up in the rhetoric of white supremacy. Now, individuals like this are what Professor Black Truth calls the irregular forces of white supremacy, and the most troubling thing for me is that seeing these irregular forces being recruited at an early age due to all of the misinformation that they read on the internet. And what happened here with Julian Davis and Charles Williams is that as these boys were in the COVID lockdowns, they possibly had access to the internet, and as they were on their devices completely unsupervised, these two children, they wound up going down a white supremacist rabbit hole of conspiracy theories and misinformation. And as they went down that rabbit hole of conspiracy theories and misinformation, they were not given any sort of supervision by their parents or given any sort of structure from their father or their mother. And without that guidance and structure and supervision, what happened was that these children of the corn got a seed of hate planted in them. And as that seed of hate got planted in them, they started to grow up like a stalk. And as they grew up like a wild stalk, they were basically going out here getting caught up in all of this misinformation that they were reading online on these white supremacist websites. And one of the white supremacist theories that they got caught up in was this whole white supremacist rhetoric regarding the Great Replacement theory. Now, this Great Replacement theory is a conspiracy theory that many white supremacists like to push, saying that when it comes to the U.S. government wants to replace white people with people from other countries, and they are actively looking to go out here and replace the white population. And because the government is looking to replace the white population, what white people need to do is arm themselves to look to go to declare war on the U.S. government. This is the misinformation that these adolescents went out here and read, possibly during the COVID lockdowns, even over the last 2 years. And as they've gone out here and read this misinformation, what happened was these boys wanted to act on this misinformation. And as they wanted to act on this misinformation, they were looking to go out here and look to build an arsenal, looking to go out here and fight against what they believed was the Great Replacement theory. And this was the thing that motivated these young boys to go out here and look to build their own firearms, like guns, and look to go out here and learn how to use explosives, and shows me the clear and present danger of children being on today's internet without any sort of guide rails or any sort of supervision. Because what's been happening over the last couple of years is that we've got more and more kids getting caught up in all of this misinformation that is been put online by these racist and white supremacists. And without anybody to go out here and give these young children guidance, what happens is that they're getting caught up in this misinformation and easily winding up being misled as related to getting caught up in the rhetoric of racist and white supremacists. And that in and of itself is a major problem as related to the internet these days, because I remember back in the 90s when we had the internet, these type of racist and white supremacists, they were out there, but they were in a far corner, and you really had to go hard to search for them. But these days, what's been happening is that as our kids have been born into the internet age, they've become more tech savvy. And as they've become more tech savvy, they're basically finding all of this misinformation. And the sad part is that there's no adults there to supervise these kids, to let them know that what they're reading online are a pack of lies. No, there's no parents there to let them know that what they're reading isn't information, but misinformation on the information superhighway. And these children don't have the critical thinking skills or discerning skills yet to understand the difference between information and misinformation. And that's where we have the clear and present danger, because we've got young people, again, who have not come to the cognitive capacity to be able to discern the difference. And this is where these kids getting caught up in this rhetoric. And as they get caught up in this rhetoric, it puts them on a road where they go from being children to becoming children of the corn, to winding up on the road to becoming boys on the road to becoming men in crisis. Because what these two boys didn't understand is that if you're going out here and building weapons that you're not supposed to have as a minor, again, that in and of itself is a crime. And another crime would be them looking to go out here and participate in an armed robbery. And these boys basically were on the road to becoming felons, similar to the Columbine shooters, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, who many kids these days basically are now seeing as some sort of hero, all due to that misinformation that's being put online. And as these kids get caught up in the rhetoric of white supremacy, what's happening is that they're being indoctrinated through this misinformation into hate and being a part of hate groups at an early age. And this is where I look at the internet and again see a clear and present danger. Our next president and the Congress of 2028 really have to go out here and make an active effort to confront. Because it's clear to me we have a serious problem with the internet these days as related to people posting this white supremacist misinformation. I mean, when I look at this misinformation, it's one of the reasons why the Orange Man got elected, and one of the reasons why many of these racist and white supremacists, like these two adolescents who are not even out of junior high school, are out here making plans to do harm to people. I mean, we have a serious misinformation problem on the internet with these conspiracy theories and these white supremacists out here who go out here and then people picking up giving books to kids like the Turner Diaries. And as they're reading this white supremacist misinformation, what I'm seeing is more and more kids under the age of 18 being misinformed and then believing that they have to go out here and commit crimes like these hate crimes, because this was possibly a hate crime that they were looking to do as related to this armed robbery. And again, we have a serious problem as related to our youth that America doesn't want to acknowledge. And again, this is a scary corner of the man crisis that we've had in this country, a scary part, I would say, because it fits that troubling pattern that I've been seeing where the perpetrators of these type of crimes like mass shootings and crimes like looking to go out here and participate in these type of racial hate crimes, the ages of the perpetrators are getting younger and younger. And what's even more disturbing than the ages getting younger and younger and being under 18 is that we're seeing an increase in frequency of these type of crimes, because this is about the 6th or 7th or 8th crime that I've had to make a video about. That's what's really troubling to me, is that we're seeing more and more of these kids, especially in this era of the Orange Man. We're seeing more and more of these kids going out here and participating in this hate. And it's troubling to me as a black Gen Xer, because I grew up in an age where we saw a lot of black people and people of other races come together, but our children and grandchildren are basically participating in the same type of behavior that many of our great grandparents did during the days of Jim Crow. And that's the most troubling thing to me, that even after us Gen Xers learned all about people working together and watched people work together on shows like G.I. Joe and many other TV shows. We saw people of all races coming together, but now we see that our grandchildren are participating in the same type of white supremacy and racism. That's what I'm seeing from many of these white kids. I'm seeing where they're out here, again, participating in all this, like Mr. Superboy has talked about for many years. I mean, when it comes down to many of these Gen Z, and in the case of these kids, Generation Alpha, they're participating in the same type of hatred and following all of this old misinformation that continues to remain online. And as there's nobody to talk to these kids, they're taking that misinformation as the gospel truth. And when it comes to that misinformation, like great replacement theory, again, this is stuff that can easily be debunked. I mean, when I did a whole video on great replacement theory and why it's not true, because the reason why white birth rates are low has to do with all the white women going to work as a result of the white feminist movement. And because the white women were out here put in the job market, what happened with many of those white women is that they chose not to have children the way they did in the greatest generation and the silent generation. Many of those women after the baby boomer generation chose not to have children because they were busy having their careers. So that's why you don't have as a large of a white population. And on top of it, when it comes down to us, we've had a lot of mass immigration come into the country that was allowed by President Joe Biden. And we also had other groups coming into America. Before that, during the era of George Bush, we had a lot of George W. Bush. We had a lot of Arabs coming in. During the 2000s, we had a lot of Africans coming in. And we had a mass migration of Black Americans out of the big cities. So there is no great replacement theory, just that demographics are changing. And again, they're changing because society in this country has basically changed. And again, as many of the white women were put to work, what happened is, again, they were not having children and other groups came into the country. And that's why it looks like, again, there aren't many white people, but that's all white people's fault in and of itself, because who was the one who supported the feminist movement? It was rich white men. And these young white guys, again, these racists don't understand that. They don't understand it was rich white men that basically, again, led to the whole situation. But again, this is what happens when you have a child out here and they're exposed to the internet, they're exposed to misinformation, and they don't have access to information. And this is further exacerbated by platforms like the search engines going out here and using algorithms, because when a child goes out here and types in, something like great replacement theory, all the conspiracy theory websites come up, and then after that, the algorithm feeds them more white supremacy. And what happens is these children wind up in an echo chamber, and as they wind up in that echo chamber, they basically wind up just hearing only misinformation. This is where the search engines, I believe, are accountable in this whole crisis. They're the ones who go out here and, again, keep feeding these children misinformation with site after site and don't look to provide any sort of counterpoint like it was in the early days of the 2000s in the internet. Now, I remember in the days of the early 2000s in the internet, if you posted up something, there would be a counterpoint posted up and websites to counter the information. But these days with the algorithm, if you type in a search like great replacement theory or whatever conspiracy theory, a site like YouTube or Google will go out here and give you more of those websites to the point where you wind up with all of this misinformation. And as you get all of this misinformation inside of this echo chamber, you get no facts at all. And as you get no facts to counter the lies, you believe the lies to be the truth. And that is the danger of being on the internet these days. There's no real objectivity. There's no real balance as related to the information you're getting. And what happens with boys like this is that those boys wind up believing that misinformation, and that makes them want to act and again participate in crimes, not understanding the consequences of those crimes, because in the case of these two juveniles, they're on a road to where they're going to, as related to this conspiracy to commit these crimes and make these weapons, they're going from being free children who have the intangible of their freedom to being a part of the juvenile justice system. And if they do get caught, again, they're going to juvenile hall, where they're going to have to deal with the authority of not their parents, but be in that system where they're eating cheese sandwiches and having to deal with the authority of the COs and the authority of Junior, Bubba, Tiny, Roscoe, Big Dave, Melvin, and Mr. Sprinkles, and have to deal with having to again, try to supplement them cheese sandwiches by going out here and getting items in the commissary, such as Little Debbie snack cakes, ramen noodles, packets of Crystal Light lemonade, packets of Crystal Light tea, Keef coffee, Taster's Choice coffee, off-brand lemon lime drink, off-brand grape drink, off-brand kiwi strawberry drink, off-brand Oreo cookies, off-brand duplex cookies, off-brand vanilla wafers, off-brand ginger snaps, Hunt's snack pack puddings, beef jerky with cheddar cheese, beef jerky with mozzarella cheese, beef jerky with Monterey Jack cheese, Fritos chips, the whole shebang chips, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pies, bear claws, pound cake, honey mustard, it's all the items of the commissary, and they're going to have to deal with that whole social pecking order and deal with acts that are unspeakable for this family channel, such as having to deal with Mr. Sprinkles and doing things that, again, will have them basically realizing that that juvenile hall and the prison system and the road to the prison system is not a place you want to be, because when it comes down to the white supremacist, again, there's not many of those guys inside of a place like a juvenile hall. And sadly, that's where these two teenagers are headed for this road, because they basically took a detour on the information superhighway as related to misinformation that may have them headed down the Hershey Highway. But the whole thing is that when you go out here, you have to understand this is why we need supervision on the internet. This is why our children need supervision if they are very young. And when it comes to parents, again, you really have to watch what your children are looking at online, really discuss what they're looking at online, and let them know that a lot of what you're seeing online, a lot of it is garbage. A lot of it is not worth even considering. I mean, I've had to learn how to discern from information from even my days when I used to go out here and look at magazines. I had to understand that a lot of that stuff was just fake. But when it comes down to these white supremacists, they love to spread misinformation. They're looking for somebody to scapegoat, and they're looking for some way to, again, tell lies to people. And you have to let your children know about these lies so that they don't get caught up in this rhetoric. Let them know that what they're seeing is a lie, because that lie could wind up costing your kids an important intangible, such as their dignity, such as their self-respect, and most importantly, their freedom and their lives. That's the danger of reading misinformation online and not having an understanding of the difference between information and misinformation, because what we have on this information superhighway are a lot of detours and a lot of garbage in these detours. Again, this is one of the reasons why we have the orange man in office, because so many people read this misinformation. They read all of these lies and believed it to be the truth. And the scariest part is that it's our children reading this misinformation and taking this misinformation to be the truth. And that's the scariest part for me as related to this growing trend in the man crisis, as related to what I call the cyber simp. Again, These children don't have any sort of discernment just yet. They haven't grown to have the discernment just yet to know the difference between misinformation and information, and they're the ones getting caught up in all of this white supremacist rhetoric and being taken from a road to having a happy childhood to possibly heading into the prison system in an upcoming and growing prison to pipeline from adolescence. Now, if you want to learn how many of these boys like this wind up growing up to become men in crisis due to misinformation, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find both of those books at Draft Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to learn more about how children become children of the corn and grow up like a stalk without any sort of structure from family, you can pick up my book, The Woman Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Woman Crisis at other online booksellers like Draft Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. Now, I really wanted to do this video because I don't want to see children being misled, and I want children to know the truth and be careful about what they're looking at as related to information and misinformation. That's something that I'm really passionate about because the internet can be a tool that can improve people's lives, and that's one of the things I try to do with this channel, and that's why I make videos like this, because I want your children and I want adults to be safe, and I want them to understand that you have to really be discerning about what you're reading, and you have to do research out here because you have a lot of people, again, pushing misinformation as information. And this is where you have to be very careful out here on this internet, because not everything you hear on these platforms is true, and not everything you hear on these platforms is something that you need to go out here and really be listening to. And if you want to see me stay on the air to try to keep continuing to go out here and share the message, to try to teach people about the difference between information and misinformation, and in videos I do like this and other videos I do like my Man Crisis videos, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, An Offer He Can't Refuse. The man who rules the world gets a job offer he can't refuse in this action-packed all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes, An Offer He Can't Refuse at Amazon.com and other online booksellers. Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS, Runway of Doom. The goddess next door struts her stuff on the catwalk to take on a runway of rogues in this action-packed all-new ISIS series adventure. Get your copy of ISIS, Runway of Doom at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, Esteem a New Woman. The devilish diva starts on the road to becoming a new creature in Christ in this all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem a New Woman at Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.